The day my husband asked for a divorce, I was 8 weeks pregnant. I hadn't told him yet because I'd been planning something special. A romantic dinner, a carefully wrapped box with the pregnancy test inside, maybe some tears of joy. The kind of moment you see in movies, the kind I'd been dreaming about since we got married 3 years earlier. Instead, I got Michael sitting across from our kitchen table with divorce papers already drawn up, his face cold and determined, telling me he'd fallen in love with my sister. My name is Sarah Martinez, and this is the story of how I lost everything and then built something so much better from the ashes. "I'm in love with Elena," Michael said, not even having the decency to look guilty about it. "I have been for over a year. We've been trying to fight it, but we can't deny our feelings anymore." I stared at him, the words not making sense at first. Elena, my younger sister. The person I'd helped raise after our mother died when she was 12. The bridesmaid at our wedding who'd cried during her speech about how happy she was that I'd found my perfect match. What? It was all I could manage to say. Michael pushed the papers across the table. "I know this is difficult, Sarah, but I think it's better to be honest rather than drag this out. Elena and I want to be together. We're in love." "You're in love," I repeated, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears, "with my sister." "I never meant for this to happen," he said, and had the audacity to sound like he was the victim here. "But you have to understand, what Elena and I have is real. It's the kind of love that doesn't come along every day." I looked at the man I'd married, the man I'd thought I'd spend my life with, and realized I was seeing a stranger. Michael Hayes had always been charming, successful, the kind of man my father had approved of immediately. He worked in corporate finance, made good money, and had seemed genuinely devoted to me. Or so I'd thought. "How long?" I asked. "Does it really matter?" "How long?" Michael shifted uncomfortably. "We kissed for the first time at your father's birthday party last year, but we didn't sleep together until 6 months ago." My father's birthday party, that was 14 months ago. I'd been so happy that day, so proud to show off my husband to extended family, so pleased that Michael and Elena seemed to be getting along as brother and sister-in-law should. I'd been such a fool. "I'm pregnant," I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. Michael's face went white. "What?" 8 weeks. I was going to tell you this weekend." I laughed, but it sounded like something breaking. I had this whole thing planned. Dinner, candles, a cute announcement. How stupid was that? "Sarah, Get out." I stood up, my hands shaking. "Take your papers and get out of my house." "Sarah, we need to talk about this." "Get out!" I screamed, and it felt good to scream, to let some of the rage and pain and betrayal pour out of me. "Get out before I do something we'll both regret." Michael grabbed the divorce papers and practically ran for the door. The moment it closed behind him, I collapsed onto the kitchen floor and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. That was 4 years ago. Now I was standing in the parking lot of an upscale shopping center, holding the hand of the most beautiful 3-year-old boy in the world, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Sarah?" I turned around, and there he was, Michael Hayes, looking older and somehow diminished, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, and more importantly, staring at the little boy beside me. My son, Christopher, looked up at me with confusion. "Mama, who's that?" I squeezed his hand gently. "Nobody important, sweetie." Michael's eyes were fixed on Christopher with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "Sarah, how old is he?" "That's none of your business," I said coldly, starting to turn away. But Michael stepped closer, his voice urgent. "Sarah, please, is he mine?" Christopher looked between us, his little face scrunched in confusion. He had Michael's dark hair and sharp jaw, but my green eyes and the dimple in his left cheek that came from my mother's side of the family. Anyone who knew both of us would see the resemblance immediately. "Why does he think he knows you?" Christopher asked me, his voice carrying that pure, guileless curiosity that only 3-year-olds can manage. He doesn't know me, baby, I said. Now come on, we need to get to your swimming lesson. I started walking toward my car, but Michael followed. Sarah, wait, please. We need to talk about this. We needed to talk 4 years ago, I said without stopping. You chose not to. I didn't know you were still pregnant. You never told me. I whirled around, rage flooding through me. I never told you? I told you the day you served me with divorce papers. I told you I was pregnant and you walked out anyway. Christopher's eyes went wide and he pressed closer to my leg. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. I would not let Michael Hayes make me lose control in front of my son. Mama? Christopher said softly. It's okay, sweetie, we're going now. I picked him up even though he was getting too big for it and carried him to the car. Michael was still standing there when I drove away, looking like his entire world had just collapsed. Good, I thought savagely. Let him feel a fraction of what I felt. But even as I thought it, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel, and I had to pull over 2 blocks away to compose myself before driving Christopher to his swim class. The encounter with Michael left me shaken for days. I'd worked so hard to build a life without him, to create stability and happiness for Christopher and myself. Seeing him again brought back all the pain and betrayal I'd thought I'd moved past. After Michael left that day 4 years ago, everything had fallen apart quickly. Elena had called me the next morning, crying and apologizing, saying she never meant to hurt me. As if sleeping with my husband for 6 months was something that just accidentally happened. I love him, Sarah, she'd sobbed. I know it's wrong, but I can't help how I feel. Then I guess you got what you wanted, I'd said flatly and hung up. That was the last time we'd spoken. My father, caught in the middle, had tried to maintain relationships with both his daughters, but it was impossible. Every family dinner became a minefield, every holiday an exercise in careful scheduling to make sure Elena and I never crossed paths. Eventually, I'd moved across the country to San Francisco, as far from Chicago and the life I'd known as I could get. I'd been 5 months pregnant, alone, and terrified, but also determined to build something better, and I had. Christopher was the light of my life, a happy, bright, curious little boy who made every sacrifice worth it. I'd finished my master's degree in urban planning while pregnant, and after Christopher was born, I'd landed a job with a prestigious architectural firm that specialized in sustainable city design. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I'd built it from nothing, and I was proud of what I'd accomplished. But now Michael was back, and I knew he wouldn't let this go easily. I was right. 3 days after our encounter in the parking lot, I came home from work to find Michael sitting on the steps of my apartment building. Christopher's nanny, Mrs. Chen, was with him upstairs, so at least I didn't have to worry about another uncomfortable scene in front of my son. But seeing Michael there, clearly waiting for me, made my stomach twist with anxiety. "How did you find out where I live?" I demanded. "LinkedIn," he said, standing up. "Your company profile lists you as Senior Project Manager at Chen & Associates. I called and said I was an old friend in town for the week." "Well, you wasted your time. We have nothing to talk about." "I disagree." Michael looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, hair disheveled, clothes wrinkled. "Sarah, please, just 5 minutes." "That's all I'm asking." Against my better judgment, I sat down on the steps. I didn't invite him inside, didn't offer any comfort, but I gave him his 5 minutes. "He's mine, isn't he?" Michael said. "Christopher, he's my son." "Biologically, yes," I said. "In every way that matters, no." Michael flinched. "Sarah, I need you to understand. When you told me you were pregnant that day, I thought you were lying, trying to manipulate me into staying. Why the hell would I lie about something like that?" "Because Elena told me you would," he said quietly. "She said you'd probably fake a pregnancy to try to keep me. So when you said it, I assumed—" The betrayal cut even deeper than I'd thought possible. "Elena told you I'd lie about being pregnant?" Michael nodded miserably. "I know how that sounds now, but at the time, I was so wrapped up in her, so convinced that what we had was real love, that I believed everything she said. "And what does Elena think about you being here?" I asked. Michael's face twisted. "We're not together anymore." I shouldn't have felt satisfaction at that, but I did. "What happened?" "She cheated on me," he said bitterly. "About a year after we got married, with her personal trainer. When I confronted her, she said I couldn't be mad because I'd done the same thing to you." "Karma's a bitch," I said without sympathy. "Sarah, I know I don't deserve anything from you. I know I destroyed what we had and hurt you in ways I can't even fully comprehend. But that little boy up there, Christopher, he's my son, and I want to be part of his life." "Absolutely not. Sarah, you made your choice, Michael. You walked away from both of us. You don't get to just walk back in now because your life with Elena didn't work out the way you hoped." "I'm not trying to walk back into your life," he said. "I know that's over. But Christopher deserves to know his father." "He has everything he needs," I said firmly. "He has a mother who loves him, a stable home, a good life. He doesn't need you coming in and confusing everything." "You can't keep him from me," Michael said, and there was an edge to his voice now. "I have rights." "You gave up your rights when you abandoned us," I shot back. "And if you try to use the legal system to force your way into his life, I will fight you with everything I have. I will make your life a living hell, Michael. Don't test me." I stood up and walked into the building without looking back, but I could feel him watching me the entire way. That night, after Christopher was asleep, I called the one person I knew could help me, my best friend from law school, Rebecca Chen. "He can't just demand parental rights after abandoning you, can he?" I asked, after explaining the situation. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. "It's complicated, Sarah. Legally, he's the biological father. If he can prove paternity and shows genuine interest in being involved in Christopher's life, a court might grant him some form of custody or visitation, even though he's been completely absent for 4 years. Even though courts generally favor maintaining parent-child relationships when possible, the fact that you never established his paternity or pursued child support might actually work against you. It could be argued that you denied him the opportunity to be involved." I felt sick. So what do I do? First, don't panic. The fact that he walked away when you told him you were pregnant is significant. You have documentation of that? The divorce papers mention my pregnancy. I made sure it was included in the filing. Good, that helps. But Sarah, I'm going to be honest with you. If he's serious about this, you're looking at a potential custody battle, and those can get ugly. I know. Does Christopher ask about his father? Sometimes, I admitted. I've told him that his daddy couldn't be with us, but that doesn't mean he's not loved. That's good. You've handled this well. But you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that Michael might become a part of Christopher's life, whether you want him to or not. After I hung up with Rebecca, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my balcony, looking out at the San Francisco skyline. I'd worked so hard to build this life, to create stability and security for Christopher. The thought of Michael disrupting all of that made me want to scream. But more than anger, I felt fear. What if Christopher liked Michael? What if he wanted a relationship with his father? What if I lost my son to the man who'd already broken my heart once? The next few weeks were tense. Michael reached out repeatedly, calls, texts, emails, begging for a chance to meet Christopher properly. I ignored all of it, focusing on work and being present for my son. But I couldn't ignore the letter from Michael's attorney, delivered by courier to my office, formally requesting paternity testing and negotiation of a custody arrangement. "Shit," I muttered, staring at the legal letterhead. My colleague, David Kim, looked up from his desk. "Everything okay?" "Ex-husband issues," I said vaguely. David and I had been working together for 2 years, and over that time, we'd become friends. He was one of the few people who knew the full story of Michael and Elena, and he'd been consistently supportive without being pushy. "The one who married your sister?" David asked. "That's the one. He found out about Christopher and now he wants to be involved." "Wow, that's complicated." "You could say that." David was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth, I think you're an amazing mother. Whatever happens, Christopher is lucky to have you." "Thanks, David." That evening, I sat Christopher down for a difficult conversation. "Sweetie, you know how some of your friends have daddies who live with them?" Christopher nodded seriously. "Like Tommy's daddy." "Right. Well, everyone has a daddy, even if they don't see them. And your daddy, he wants to meet you." Christopher's eyes went wide. "My daddy? Really?" The excitement in his voice broke my heart. "Yes, really. How would you feel about that?" "I want to meet him." Christopher bounced with enthusiasm. "Does he know about dinosaurs? Can he play trucks with me?" I forced a smile. "I don't know, baby, but we'll find out." 2 weeks later, I found myself in a child-friendly meeting room at Rebecca's law office, watching Michael meet his son for the first time. Christopher had been nervous at first, clinging to my leg and peeking at Michael with curious eyes. But Michael had come prepared. He'd brought a box of age-appropriate toys and seemed genuinely interested in engaging with Christopher. "I heard you like dinosaurs," Michael said, pulling out a T-Rex figure. Christopher's eyes lit up. "That's a Tyrannosaurus Rex. They're the king of the dinosaurs." "Is that right? Can you tell me more about them?" I watched, my heart aching, as Christopher launched into an animated explanation of various dinosaur species. Michael listened attentively, asking questions and seeming genuinely engaged. He was good with Christopher, patient, kind, interested. It would have been easier if he'd been terrible, if Christopher had been scared or uninterested. But watching them interact, I could see the beginning of a bond forming, and it terrified me. After an hour, Rebecca suggested we take a break. Christopher went with Mrs. Chen to get a snack, leaving Michael and me alone with our attorneys. "He's amazing," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. "Sarah, he's incredible." "I know. I've missed 4 years of his life." Michael's eyes were wet. 4 years of birthdays and first words and learning to walk. I can't get that back." "You made your choice," I said. But even to my own ears, my voice lacked conviction. "I made the worst mistake of my life," Michael said. "I let Elena manipulate me into thinking you were lying. I was so blind, so stupid. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But I'm here now, and I want to do right by him, by both of you." "I don't want anything from you," I said firmly. "I know. But I want to pay child support retroactively, and I want regular visitation. I want to be his father, Sarah. Please." Rebecca and Michael's attorney exchanged looks. "Perhaps we could work out an arrangement," Rebecca suggested. "Supervised visitation at first, with the goal of building towards something more substantial if it goes well." "I want DNA testing done first," I said. "Let's make this official." Michael nodded. "Of course. Whatever you need." The paternity test came back exactly as expected. Michael was definitively Christopher's biological father. With that established, we worked out a custody arrangement. Supervised visits once a week for the first 3 months, with the possibility of unsupervised visitation afterward if things went well. I hated every minute of it. Hated watching Michael bond with Christopher. Hated seeing my son light up when Daddy Mike came to visit. Hated how Christopher started asking when he could go to Daddy Mike's house. But I couldn't deny that Michael was genuinely trying. He showed up for every scheduled visit. He asked about Christopher's day, remembered his favorite foods, learned about his interests. He even started coordinating with Christopher's swim instructor to understand his son's schedule better. 3 months passed, and Michael petitioned for unsupervised visitation. Rebecca advised that we wouldn't win if we fought it. Michael had demonstrated consistent involvement and appropriate parenting behavior. The first time, I had to let Christopher go with Michael for a full afternoon. I thought I might throw up. I checked my phone every 15 minutes, jumped every time it rang, and paced my apartment like a caged animal. When Michael brought Christopher home that evening, my son was bubbling with excitement. "Mama, Daddy Mike took me to the aquarium. I saw real sharks, and we got ice cream after." "That sounds wonderful, sweetie," I said, trying to match his enthusiasm. Michael lingered in the doorway. "He was great. We had a really good time." "I'm glad. Sarah, can we talk just for a minute?" I sent Christopher to wash his hands for dinner and turned to Michael. "What?" "I know this is hard for you," he said quietly, "and I want you to know that I'm not trying to replace you or undermine you. You've done an incredible job raising him. He's happy, healthy, well-adjusted. That's all because of you. But I also want to be a real father to him, not just the weekend fun dad, but someone who's genuinely involved in his life." "That's what you're doing," I pointed out. "I want more than every other weekend visit, Sarah. I want to be able to pick him up from school sometimes, take him to doctor's appointments, be there for the everyday things." "Absolutely not. Sarah, you've been in his life for 4 months, Michael. 4 months compared to the 3.5 years I raised him alone. You don't get to just demand equal custody." "I'm not demanding anything," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. "I'm asking. I'm trying to do this the right way." "The right way would have been showing up 4 years ago," I said, "but you didn't. So now you get what I'm willing to give, and you should be grateful for that." Michael's jaw tightened. "I'm not going to fight with you in front of Christopher. But this isn't over." He left, and I closed the door, feeling both victorious and exhausted. But Michael's words stayed with me. Was I being unfair? Was I letting my own hurt and anger keep Christopher from having a fuller relationship with his father? I didn't have answers. All I knew was that I was terrified of losing my son, and Michael represented a threat to everything I'd built. 6 months into the custody arrangement, things came to a head. Michael had been increasingly pushing for more time with Christopher, and I'd been consistently refusing. The tension between us was palpable, and even Christopher was starting to notice. "Why don't you like Daddy Mike?" he asked me one night at bedtime. "It's complicated, sweetie. But he's nice, and he loves me. Why can't he live with us?" "Because sometimes grown-ups can't live together, even if they both love you very much. Tommy's parents don't live together, but they're still friends." "Can you and Daddy Mike be friends?" Out of the mouths of babes. "I'll try, baby, I promise." The next day I called Michael. "We need to talk," I said, "in person, without lawyers." We met at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. It was awkward at first, both of us uncertain how to act without attorneys present. "Christopher asked me why we can't be friends," I said finally. Michael's expression softened. "What did you tell him?" "That I'd try, and I meant it. Michael, I can't keep doing this. The constant fighting, the tension, it's not good for any of us, especially not for Christopher." "I agree. But I need you to understand something." I leaned forward, looking him directly in the eyes. "You broke my heart. You betrayed me in the worst possible way, and then you abandoned me when I needed you most. I have spent 4 years building a life from the ashes of what you destroyed. And while I've forgiven you, because holding on to that anger was eating me alive, I will never forget what you did." Michael nodded slowly. "I understand. I don't trust you. Maybe I never will. But Christopher loves you, and he deserves to have both his parents in his life. So I'm willing to try to make this work. But I need you to meet me halfway. What do you need from me?" "First, I need you to stop trying to take him away from me. The constant pushing for more custody, the legal threats, it needs to stop. We work out a schedule that works for both of us, and we stick to it." "Done." "Second, I need you to respect that I'm his primary parent. I've been making decisions for him since he was born, and I'm good at it. You don't get to come in and undermine me or second-guess my choices." "Fair enough." "And third," I said, my voice softening slightly, I need you to be consistent. If you're going to be in his life, you have to really be in it. Not just when it's convenient, not just for the fun stuff, all of it. Because if you break his heart the way you broke mine, I will never forgive you." Michael's eyes were wet. "Sarah, I promise you, I'm not going anywhere. I know I've given you every reason not to trust me, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that I've changed. I'm going to be the father Christopher deserves." We hammered out a new arrangement right there. Michael would have Christopher every other weekend and one evening during the week. We'd alternate holidays and birthdays. We'd communicate regularly about Christopher's needs, schedule, and development. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Over the next year, something unexpected happened. Michael and I actually became friends. Not close friends exactly, but friendly co-parents who could have conversations about our son without it turning into a fight. Michael was true to his word. He was consistent, involved, and respectful of my role as Christopher's primary parent. He started dating someone new, a kind woman named Jennifer, who was patient with Christopher and never tried to overstep. I started dating too, going out with David from work after months of him dropping increasingly unsubtle hints. Christopher thrived with two involved parents. He was happy, secure, and loved, exactly what I'd always wanted for him. But there was still one piece of unfinished business: Elena. I hadn't spoken to my sister in almost 5 years. According to my father, who I'd resumed a relationship with, Elena had spiraled after her divorce from Michael. She'd gone through a series of bad relationships, lost her job, and was currently living with our father while trying to get back on her feet. "She asks about you," my father told me during one of our weekly phone calls. "About Christopher. She regrets everything, Sarah." "I'm sure she does." "Would you consider talking to her? For closure, if nothing else?" I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted nothing to do with Elena ever again. But another part of me, the part that had spent years in therapy working through my trauma, knew that holding on to that anger was only hurting me. "Maybe," I said finally. "Let me think about it." 2 weeks later, I got a letter from Elena. Not an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter delivered by mail. "Dear Sarah," it began, "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. What I did to you was unforgivable. I destroyed your marriage, betrayed your trust, and justified it all by telling myself that love conquers all. I was selfish, cruel, and delusional. I want you to know that I've paid for what I did. Michael and I were miserable together. The relationship that seemed so worth destroying everything for turned out to be built on nothing but lies and selfishness. He never loved me the way he loved you, and I never loved him as much as I loved the idea of winning. Because that's what it was, Sarah, a competition I created in my own head. You were always the successful one, the smart one, the good daughter. And I wanted to prove I could take something from you. I wanted to matter. I know now how sick that was. I've been in therapy for 2 years, working through my jealousy and insecurity. I've learned that I've always felt like I was living in your shadow, and instead of dealing with those feelings in a healthy way, I lashed out in the cruelest way possible. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to respond to this letter, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything I took from you. Your sister, if you'll still call me that, Elena." I read the letter 3 times, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Anger, still, yes, but also a strange sort of pity for the person Elena had been, so desperate to compete that she'd destroyed both our lives in the process. I didn't respond to the letter right away. Instead, I thought about what I wanted. Did I want Elena back in my life? Did I want Christopher to know his aunt? The answer surprised me. Maybe. Not right away. Not with open arms. But maybe, someday, there could be room for carefully rebuilding something. Not the relationship we'd had before, that was dead and buried, but perhaps something new. something based on honesty and boundaries and mutual respect. A year later, I invited Elena to Christopher's 5th birthday party. It was carefully planned. I told Michael beforehand, and he was supportive despite his own complicated feelings about Elena. I talked to Christopher about having an aunt who wanted to meet him. I set clear boundaries with Elena about what this did and didn't mean. When Elena arrived, she looked smaller than I remembered. Older, worn down by life. She brought a modest gift, a dinosaur book that Christopher loved, and spent most of the party standing awkwardly to the side. At one point, I found her watching Christopher play with his friends, tears streaming down her face. "He's beautiful, Sarah," she said quietly. "You've done such an amazing job with him." "Thank you. I can't believe I almost missed out on knowing him because of my own stupidity." "You're here now," I said. "That's what matters." Elena looked at me with surprise. "You mean that?" "I mean that I'm willing to try, slowly, with boundaries. But I'm willing to try to have some kind of relationship with you again. For Christopher, if nothing else, he deserves to know his extended family. I promise I won't let you down again. See that you don't." It wasn't a hallmark moment. There was no tearful embrace or declarations of sisterly love, but it was a beginning, and sometimes that's enough. 2 years after that, I stood in my living room watching Christopher, now 7 years old, laugh at something his father was saying while his Aunt Elena helped set the table for Sunday dinner. David, who I'd been dating seriously for over a year, was in the kitchen finishing up the cooking. It wasn't the family I'd imagined when I married Michael all those years ago. It was messier, more complicated, built from broken pieces and hard-won forgiveness. But it was mine, and it was real, and it was enough. Michael caught my eye and smiled. Not the smile of a man who still wanted me, but the smile of a co-parent who respected me and appreciated what we'd built together for our son. "Thank you," he mouthed. I nodded, accepting his gratitude. Christopher ran over to me, his face flushed with excitement. "Mama, can Daddy Mike and Miss Jennifer come to my school play next week? And can Uncle David come too? And Aunt Elena?" "Of course they can, sweetie. Anyone you want there." "I have the best family," Christopher declared confidently. And as I looked around at this unusual patchwork family we'd built from tragedy and betrayal and hard-won redemption, I realized he was right. This wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was better than anything I could have imagined, because it was built on truth, on growth, on the understanding that people can change and second chances are possible. Michael had been a terrible husband. He'd betrayed me in the worst possible way, but he'd become a good father and a decent co-parent, and that was enough. Elena had destroyed our relationship through jealousy and selfishness, but she'd done the work to understand why and had emerged as someone capable of genuine remorse and growth. And me? I'd learned that I was stronger than I ever knew, that I could build a life from nothing and create something beautiful from the ashes of what I'd lost. As we sat down to dinner, this strange, wonderful family of mine, I felt a contentment I hadn't known was possible. Not happiness in the simple, uncomplicated way I'd felt when I was young and naive, but something deeper. Peace, hard-won and treasured. "Mama," Christopher said, "why are you crying?" "Happy tears, baby. Just happy tears." And they were. The day Michael asked for a divorce, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything, but really, I'd only lost the illusion of what I thought I had, and in its place I'd built something real, something messy and complicated and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. 4 years after Michael first saw Christopher in that parking lot, I finally understood that his return wasn't the disaster I'd feared. It was the catalyst that pushed us all toward becoming better versions of ourselves. Michael learned to be a father. Elena learned to face her own demons. And I learned that my happiness had never depended on either of them. I was whole all by myself. Everything else was just a bonus, and that made all the difference.